Hey everybody, good morning. Welcome to Hey Coach Tony. I'm your host Tony Fiorino, and as you know, each week here on Hey Coach Tony, we tackle the hottest topics in youth sports. As always, we want to hear from you, so we open up the studio lines at 855-HEY-COACH. That's 855-439-2622. Well, this past week, I got to tell you, I finally heard something that I have never heard before. It finally happened. A dad got caught literally punching his 8th grade son in the face after losing a game. I think deep down we all knew that this might happen someday, but between you and me, I just wasn't ready for it. I'm hoping we get to talk about that a little bit later on in the show. But first, if you remember, last week we wrapped up the show talking about 3 youth football coaches from New Canaan, Connecticut, who took their 8th grade players away from their year-end football dinner for a little team-building exercise. Now, it turns out this team from New Canaan had not lost a game in like 5 years. 5 years straight running, they were champs. But this particular year, they happened to lose in the semifinals. Well, to show their appreciation for the boys' efforts, they had the boys put their trophies in a big pile. They poured gasoline on them, and they lit them on fire, destroying the trophies. There are obviously plenty more details on this, but the gist of it is this. During the week, I was literally blown away with what took place all over the internet regarding this story. On the blogs and the local news sites, there were people getting very passionate about both sides of this equation. There were people who wanted the coaches' heads on a platter, including myself. There were people who insist that these are great men who were teaching these young boys a valuable life lesson. Now, even on my own YouTube page, and this is where it started to get funny, a group of children, and I call them children because they're still teenagers, a group of children decided to go on the attack. If you haven't heard the story, we're going to touch on it lightly, and just to get you up to speed on what happened here. But joining me in studio this week to hammer these points is Sheppaug Valley High School baseball coach Mike Kersten. Mike has an excellent background. He, aside from coaching at Sheppaug Valley, he played baseball at UMass. He also coaches football, I believe, right, at the Gunnery Prep School, also in Washington, Connecticut. He's also officiated basketball at the prep and high school levels. All around very well-grounded in scholastic and youth sports in general. Mike, thanks for joining me this morning. Welcome to Hey Coach Tony. How you doing?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me.
The pleasure is indeed all mine. I don't even know where to start. When I first invited you to come and do the show, Mike, I asked you to go to the YouTube page and to watch last week's show, or at least the end of last week's show where we touched on this New Canaan thing. I got to ask you, what did you think? When just as a guy who didn't know the story until you watched the show, you see the show, you heard what I talked about, you heard about the story. What went through your mind?
Well, I obviously living in Connecticut, I follow the sports in the newspapers and TV. I actually had not heard about it until you had mentioned it when we talked about coming on the show. Honestly, the first thing was it's something you might hear, and not to knock the rest of the country, but it's something you might hear maybe down south or somewhere in some far-off land, and saying, well, that's pretty clueless, and
you'd be right.
Uneducated on their part. I mean, a few thoughts. Obviously, in this day and age, it's 2011. Everybody at every level is under a microscope. And part of it has to do with the effect that you have on kids. A few things came to light. I know New Canaan has a great football tradition.
Absolutely. Lou Marinelli's been a guest on the show. I have nothing but the utmost respect for Lou. I tried to get in touch with Lou in time to get him to come in and talk this week. I just couldn't get in touch with him. But, yeah, tradition very deep in football. Big
tradition. I had the fortune of officiating a state tournament game down there last year, a girls' game. Our referee locker rooms are right across in the weight room. And I said to my partner, we're getting, you have to be there early and so forth. And the weight room they have. And I said, this is why I see him on Madison Square Garden. That's why I see him winning state finals and so forth. So obviously a lot of good people. I don't know Coach, but obviously great football tradition. That being said, That being said, I'm fortunate to come from a very good baseball town. I think about an Ansonia. I think just won their 17th state finals. That being said, you think about some of those kids. Sure, some of those kids are probably going to go on and win a state final with New Canaan just because of tradition, which is great. Some of those kids might be role players and so forth. Some of those kids, that might be their last trophy. That may be their last trophy. And while it may seem minute and, rah, New Canaan and big football tradition, I get it. You want everybody to hop on board. It may be the last trophy they get. And I just, in this day and age, it's amazing whether you are thinking that way and you're disappointed that your 5-year run came to an end, that you don't stop and say, hey, is this, even for thinking this way and joking behind the scenes with the coaches, hey, is this the right thing to do? Is this the right thing we're teaching these kids? And it was shocking to hear that. And New Canaan's a well-to-do area, a lot of educated
by
people.
the way, hang on. Now, you didn't read a lot of the comments then, because you would think by the reaction of some of these kids that New Canaan was the hood. If you haven't gone to my YouTube page, go check out some of these comments and the way some of these kids are talking. You would think they were in a waiting room trying to cut a rap album. Think about it. The worst thing happened in New Canaan, Connecticut is someone loses a brass button off their blazer, and these kids are talking like we're from the streets. Made me sick. In all fairness, I'm not going to attack kids. Did I have a little fun with them, poking them in the nose online? Yes, I did. Did I invite them to call in and speak their mind? I did. Are they going to? No, they're not. I mean, but I tell you what, if you want to, 855, hey, coach is the number here in the studio. It's 855-439-2622. But you brought up a great point. Some of these kids will go on and play for Marinelli, and they'll do very, very well. A lot of those kids, I'll go so far as to say I know some of those kids have played their last football game. It's just the nature of the beast. And maybe that kid would have liked to have had a symbol of his last. Maybe they finished third because it was the semifinals, but maybe that was the best season that kid had. And his trophy right now is reduced to rubble. It's in charred ashes in a park in New Canaan. And I got to tell you, if it was the kid's decision to do it, I'd be okay with it. But you know what? I don't think those kids were in the dinner getting their trophy saying, hey, guys, why don't we go burn our trophies? And even if they did, even
if they did, Tony, then as a coach, you step in and say, hey, guys, I appreciate the passion. I appreciate where you're coming from. Want to be part of the start of a tradition when you go on next year to most of them probably New Canaan High and be part of that great football tradition. Great, get it. Want to be part of it. But guys, kids, this is not what we're going to do. Okay. I could speak to Ansonia. I could speak to our program at Sheppaug. 5 state finals. 50 years, out of the last 50 years, 47 state tournament appearances, 22 to the semis at least. I can bring any guy that won a state championship there, and I can guarantee you none of them had that experience. And I'm sure they did a lot of other things down the road and after their Little League careers to get to a state championship and go on and play college ball. And it was never someone throwing trophies and burning them. There were a lot of lessons by some legendary coaches up that way. But I guarantee you they were smart enough not to have those kind of things occur. And you can go to an Ansonia, and I can guarantee you they probably had some, old school. Ansonia's a blue-collar town. But, I don't understand. If you think that that's going to propel you to a state championship, sure, you're emphasizing the passion. But, all you got to do is watch them on Thanksgiving Day or, I know they went to another state final. You know what it's about down there, just like you know what it's about in Washington with Sheppaug or some of these other towns. You know what the passion's about. And passion aside, one thing that no one really talked about on any of the blogs, any of the local news sites, or on my YouTube page where the kids were going nuts with their 50-cent attitude. But the point is this. Let's assume the kid still wanted to burn his trophy. Take your coach's hat off for a second. Put your parent hat on. The kid may not know that's his last game. May not even want it to be his last game. May think, I don't want this trophy because I do think third place sucks. Well, guess what? As a parent, you have an obligation. If anybody decides that trophy gets burned when it pertains to an 8th grade kid, that's a decision that should be put in the hands of the parents. And unfortunately, the parents were not even given a heads up in advance going, hey, here's what we're thinking of doing. The fact of the matter is these guys made a decision that was beyond stupid.
It really was. And, by the way, it resulted in, if anybody is not aware, and some people refuse to believe that this is true. Now, there's some conflicting stories, but apparently the first story I read was that all 3 coaches resigned. Second story I heard was that they were fired. And these were both published stories. So just because you write it down, don't make it true. But the fact of the matter is, this is obviously a very, very stupid decision. And I think the dumbest part of this was these were guys who were not thinking about the repercussions and clearly did not think about the fact that these are still boys. These are not men. You can call them whatever you want at practice, because I know in football we're making you men. Great. You may be making them men, but until they are men, their parents ultimately have the decision-making power. And if I had a son who was playing, and let's say was a marginal player, and that was his last symbol of youth football, and someone else decided to say, hey, let's go burn him, I'd be very, very angry. I don't know how you feel about that.
Absolutely. A couple quick points. I think I told you on the phone last night, I had the good fortune out of school of working in a special needs school and supervising a residential program, teaching there for a year with special needs, some very tough kids with some very challenging backgrounds. I don't think people, whether it's even parents or coaches and just mainstream people all the time, whether it's special needs kids, mainstream kids, however you want to classify them, understand the impact and how kids perceive things. Whether it's watching kids, you go into high school now and watching kids how they dress. They're not dressing like the president, okay? They're dressing like the guys that you see on the videos and so forth. My point is they are very influenced by what adults do. And some of these kids probably look at those coaches as complete gods. And not to bring it in, because I know you want to talk about Tebow lately, but you know what I'm saying? Use the thing to
Let's leave God out of this.
They have them on this pedestal, and if these kids, these coaches say, "Hey, we're going to jump off that river," and it's they're going to do it, and that's you got to understand the influence you have on kids and the impact you have. The other side, I'd say, very simply, and people might disagree. Listen to this, but there's a lot of ways to motivate your kids. Hey, guys, I get it. You don't like the third place, and I know we're not used to those. Put that trophy up in your room, and every day you go out to work out and stuff, take a look at that trophy. Take that trophy, use that as motivation. There's plenty of ways to motivate your kids.
You absolutely, and that's another one no one talked about, because the idiots, and I'm going to call you idiots because I got really annoyed with this, who said, no, that was a motivational tool. Guess what? You take that thing out of the equation, it's no longer a motivating tool. You want to motivate a kid, in my opinion, hang that third place trophy. If you want to be a jerk about it and use third place as it's not good enough, make them carry it in their backpacks to school, make them wear it around their neck. That'll motivate a kid to not come in third place again. I mean, I kept thinking the same exact thing. And again, what's happening for a town that's very affluent and very well educated, I got to tell you, I didn't hear a lot of intelligent arguments. And by the way, it wasn't just the kids. It wasn't just the kids who were supporting this. There were some adults who were saying, we're raising a generation of wusses, and these kids aren't being taught any character. And I'm going to go through some of those. I'm hoping some people will actually have the cojones to call in and talk about this. And I'm not going to beat you up today, but I really want to know if Rod Fox and any of his coaches are listening, which I would think they would be with all the fervor around what's been said online. Call the station. I'll be civil. I want to hear what you have to say. I believe these guys, in general, have been successful football coaches. They made a really stupid decision. But I'm still wondering, and as a former player and a current coach, it's easy to be a good coach when you win in every game. It's easy to be perceived as, wow, legendary coach, never lost. A coach's true character is revealed when you don't come in first place. And these guys had it happen to them once. And what happened? Monumental, moronic decision. All right, we're going to have to go to a quick break here. But before we do, I got to tell you, folks, I'm not a big WWE fan, okay? But I am now, and let me explain to you why. My son TJ is part of a peer group at his high school. And this year they adopted a family who, just like a lot of us, is having a tough time through the holiday season financially. They're having trouble making ends meet, much less giving the kids everything they want. Well, TJ and his peer group adopted this family, and TJ found out that one of the younger boys in the family is a big-time WWE fan. Well, he called WWE. He was fortunate enough to get in touch with the vice president of licensing, a guy by the name of Michael Archer. Mike Archer and WWE stepped up big time. When they heard what TJ was doing, they sent a box of stuff to our house, which we could open up a little WWE store. Everything from action figures to video games to more T-shirts than the kid will ever wear before he outgrows them. And in the bottom of the box, there's a little envelope that said something special. I open it up, 5 tickets to the event that they're having on December 27th at Madison Square Garden. So, Mike Archer, if you're listening, anybody from WWE in Stamford, Connecticut, if you're listening, hats off to you guys. You really, really have made this holiday season for one special family that is going to get plenty of other help. But I know that this one young boy, I think he's 8 or 9 years old, this kid's going to have a Christmas to remember, and it's because of you guys. So, for more information on this event, it's on December 27th at Madison Square Garden. Just go to WWE.com for more information. Click on tickets. And you know what? Listen, they all jump off the top rope. They bash each other with chairs. But when it's time to step up, they did, and step up big time. So WWE, thank you from the bottom of our hearts. You're really listening to Hey Coach Tony. Stick around. We'll be right back. Coach Tony. Hey, welcome back, everybody. You're with Coach Tony and also with Coach Mike, who was kind enough to join me from Sheppaug Valley High School. And I got to tell you, Mike, for a guy who doesn't do this for a living, you you sure know your stuff, man.
Well, I don't know what that. My nickname's Jaws. I didn't tell you that for talking a lot. So.
Well, you will not outspeak Coach Tony this day or any other, but, good luck trying. And by the way, I think it's important for me to note, we're talking about these kids, and I'm calling them idiots. The fact of the matter is this. Listen, this show is about creating the right environment for kids. So while I think a handful of them are knuckleheads, and that's just the nature of the beast, the reality is, and I did say this stuff online, and I was very civil online, it's not so much that they're idiots as much as they are truly inexperienced. And that's what I don't think kids get. And I never thought I would say these things because I was just like you. The knuckleheads who were listening and who were afraid to call in, that's okay. But I was just like you. I thought anybody over the age of 30 didn't know what was going on. But the fact is this. You will think differently when you become a parent. You will think differently when you become a coach. And I personally, do I lose my temper? I absolutely do, because growing up in a very competitive sports environment, and for those of you who question my sports background online, don't. I'm a very accomplished former athlete, former nonetheless. And by the way, while I am clearly not in playing shape, I don't think anyone would look at me and any of the first 20 words comes to mind. Fat would not be one of them. You want to make fun of me? Make fun of my nose. It's very big. But the point being this. I have zero tolerance for people who do things the wrong way, and I have less than zero tolerance for people who try to defend it, because there was more talk about, and this has been a trend over the past month, there was more talk about and I'm going to get to some of these comments and I'm going to read them, but hey, Coach Tony, does this one mistake erase all the good things that these coaches have done? Short answer, no. Longer answer, kinda. Because guess what? There was another very well-respected coach.
Joe Pa.
Yeah, and don't say Joe Pa on the show ever again. You obviously didn't see that. Joe Paterno. I can't honor him enough with a nickname. One of the greatest coaches of any sport, anywhere in the world, in the history of mankind. What will Joe Paterno be remembered for? Not meeting the bar that he set for everybody else, sitting idly by while kids got tormented, tortured, assaulted. Now, is burning a trophy anywhere near as bad as what happened at Penn State? No. Are there repercussions for those actions? Yes, there are. If you think that Rod Fox and his gang of merry men should not have been fired or should not have had to resign, call me and just explain to me why. As a parent, and a kid you can call, but I want a parent, because there were one or two parents who thought this was a bunch of garbage and that these guys were doing great things. I don't see the life lesson. I can see using third place as a motivation, like I said, but I would never let those trophies disappear. I would follow the kids around high school with that third place trophy, chasing behind them with it, saying, don't ever let this happen again. That I can kind of get. But like I said, taking it to that level is just downright ridiculous. 855-HEY-COACH is the number here in the studio. It's 855-439-2622. And as I said, there are still some developing factors in this case. For example, as I said earlier, I have already read, and from decent sources, one was CBS, and the other was not as, I can't even remember, so let's put it that way. But one story said that these coaches resigned. And by the way, Rod Fox, I believe, was also the president of the New Canaan Youth League or something like that. One story says they resigned. The other story says that they were removed from their positions. Either way, these coaches are coaches no more. And quite frankly, I don't know if that's for the best or not, but I'm certainly not surprised. Mike, do you think they deserve to be fired if that's indeed what happened?
It's probably a little fine line. I don't know them. But they probably did a lot of good things there. They're probably good people. Who knows? Give them the benefit of the doubt. No matter, and hey, listen, it is 8th graders. They're a step away from maybe potentially some of them playing on that varsity field. So I get it. It's not 3rd or 4th grade. It's a little different. There's a difference there. That being said, when you say, hey, let's do this, whoever came up with the idea, let's do this, did you stop and say, is this really the right thing? Are there other ways that we can motivate these guys at the end of our year meeting or whatever party it was or whatever it was? Is that the best way to motivate these guys? And number 2, yeah, maybe that kid, maybe my kid, maybe that kid. I come from one of the youngest of 7, tough background. If I'd come home and that happened back in the day, it would have been, I'm not saying it would have been okay, but we were a little different background. Not every kid's like that. Not every kid is like that. And it goes back, some of those kids might be their last trophy, might be their only trophy, might be their only trophy. And in this day and age, in 2011, where teachers, coaches are under a microscope, you got to step back and say, what are the repercussions of this? And we were talking a little bit off the air about New Canaan. Probably some of those alumni listen to this, just like their Sheppaug alumni say, hey, and I get it. I get it as a coach, as a player. Guys bust my chops. Hey, what's up with 11 wins last year? And I get it. What's going on? That's not acceptable. But at the same rate, there's a way you go about it these days. That's why you take a coaching class. That's why I've been fortunate to work with a lot of kids, some tough kids from backgrounds, some affluent kids at the prep school level, a lot of good coaches that I learned from. And over time, you get experience, and I have that advantage. And I make my mistakes like we all have. I just wonder if some of these people in these positions understand, number 1, what the repercussions are. In this day and age, you're under a microscope everywhere, internet everywhere. And number 2, the influence in your decisions, how they impact kids, especially younger kids. Obviously, the older they get, they're on their own a little bit. But when you're dealing with middle school and elementary,
hey, you got 8th grade boys. I'm shocked, and I'm still not convinced it doesn't exist. I would be shocked if there wasn't one kid with his cell phone who videotaped the whole thing. I wouldn't be surprised if that came out next. What I'm also wondering is, since this was the year-end banquet, I'm wondering if there was an open bar, because it's one thing for one guy to make a really stupid mistake. It's another thing for 2 other grown adults not to get, gee, I wonder what might happen if we do this. 3 of them. And they obviously, it wasn't a spur-of-the-moment thing, because they obviously knew not to tell the parents. They didn't rally everybody and say, we're going to go burn our trophies. Someone kind of thought this out and said, here's what we're going to do with these 3rd-place trophies. And the other thing that people lost sight of is, you mentioned something kind of interesting. It may be some kid's only trophy. What if you're the 3rd-string kicker on that 8th grade team? It's the only trophy you're going to get. What else do you know about kids like that? They may be a little bit, impressionable. As most, like I said, you get one 8th grade kid to fart in class, they're all going to start doing it. You get one to do something stupid on his bicycle, they're all going to do it. Do you think maybe 1 or 2 kids that really didn't want to burn those trophies maybe threw it in the pile?
Yeah, thinking, I got to do what everybody else is doing, but saying, I don't want to throw this in a pile. We've come in 2nd place and stuff. I have those trophies at home, 2nd place, runner-up, this and that. We didn't go toss them around, okay? I'm like, again, probably at the end of those tournaments in the Little League, you weren't too happy, but again, there's ways to motivate you and say, hey, maybe next year I want to be the 1st place, be in that 1st place.
And let's even talk about the top 2 or 3 studs on that team. I said something last week that made me sound really like the kind of guy that just sits in front of his TV eating Doritos and ice cream. I still have basically every trophy I ever got. It's they're at my parents' house, and if you come to my parents' house for Christmas Eve, you're going to see those trophies somewhere. The point is, it's not just about whether it was the All-Star team or 1st place or 4th place or even a participation trophy, which, by the way, if anybody's wondering, do I think everyone gets a trophy? No, I don't. So please understand that. But the point is, it's a symbol of something that happened that year. And to rob a kid or a parent of that is, and I'll overstate it knowingly, so don't take me literally, which is everyone's doing when I told the coaches to kill themselves, and no one's talked about that yet, and we will. don't take me literally. I mean, that is a symbol of that kid's childhood, and you're robbing it. You're literally robbing it from the kid and from the parent. You know, some of the best experiences I had happened to take place during some of the most disappointing seasons I had. And like I said, I think these guys really lost sight of all the things. It wasn't just a piece of plastic. It wasn't just third place versus first place. They really did, you know, have more of an impact than they should have had. And I'd be shocked if, given the opportunity, they wouldn't have all just taken it back and just done something different. I mean, that's where I look at it. All right, 855, hey, Coach, is the number in the studio, 855-439-2622. But I promised I would get to some of the comments that were made online, and I will, unfortunately, have to limit this discussion to the ones that I, can read on the air. The teenagers in New Canaan, very colorful vocabulary. So I don't know who's running the English department there, but, you know, congratulations. But while we're waiting for your calls, I'm going to get some of these comments. Some of them came from my YouTube page. Some of them came from CBS. Some of them came from other local sports sites, etc. But the first one came in from a child who took particular offense with me telling the coaches to kill themselves at the end of last week's show. I'm not going to say the name because it's usually an online handle anyway. Coach Tony, your soft attitude about the Rod Fox event is nothing short of pathetic. You keep giving little kids shiny trophies for third place, and over time they start to think that third place is amazing, when in reality, third place sucks. Kids are okay with being mediocre because they keep getting rewarded for it. And then 30 years later, they turn into whiny, washed-up losers like you. That means me. Complaining about people who don't reward other losers. Well, like I said, I don't have the kid's name nor his number. Wish I did. And I wish he called today. But anyway, the point is, part of what this kid said is right. And if you're listening, kid, after this is where you lost all respect and all sense of reality. But the point of, like the participation trophies, that I completely concur with. I think that we continue to reward mediocrity. I think that is indeed a bad thing. Where this kid misses the point, semifinals, that's not mediocrity. It's just not. Should you be proud of finishing in third place? Yes, you should. Should you be proud of getting to the semifinals? Yes. Should you be disappointed you didn't win? Yes. Yes. I don't know why people are connecting too many dots here. I mean, Mike, what's your thought? You hear a kid like this who's, at some point, somewhere between 8th grade and, let's say, high school senior. What do you think when a kid says something like that?
I get it, and I'm sure there's a lot of New Canaan kids out there, and good kids, and I get it. They have a big-time tradition, and they should be proud of that. And they should want the younger ones coming up to take part in that and experience the state finals and all that. Completely get it. A lot of good kids down there, great kids, I'm sure, down there. That being said, when this kid or whoever is, when they're 30, like you said before, and they're a teacher, they're a coach, a little more mature, have some of the experiences that some of the other people that have been through it, whether you play at the college level, work with kids, you'll understand that decision that they made wasn't the brightest decision.
Absolutely.
It's that simple. It's not rocket science. Again, until you've worked with kids maybe or had them and been around them, coached them, been at the camps, maybe been at the college level, whatever it may be, until you see how some of your decisions influence the kids, and not only on the field, off the field.
You're just not going to get it. We got to go to a quick break here, but before we do, I heard of something very cool, and you're a baseball guy, so you're going to appreciate this. Parents, if you want your young baseball player to get the same exact instruction as Derek Jeter and Alex Rodriguez, guess what? Kevin Long, the batting instructor for the New York Yankees, is holding a clinic at Pro Swing. Pro Swing is one of the sponsors of the show. At Pro Swing in Port Chester, New York, just off of I-95. Call Pro Swing today at 914-937-6700 because Sunday, January 15th, from 6 to 8 p.m., Kevin Long is going to be working with your kids on an individual basis, breaking down their swing and helping them to make improvements. If you don't know, Kevin Long is regarded as one of the best batting instructors in the major leagues. So do not miss this once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to have your kid train with the New York Yankees batting instructor. Like I said, for more information, call Pro Swing in Port Chester at 914-937-6700, and make sure you tell them Coach Tony sent you. You're with Hey Coach Tony. Stick around. I'll be right back. Coach Tony. Hey, welcome back, everybody. You're with Hey Coach Tony. I am Tony Fiorino, and we're talking about this whole debacle that took place in New Canaan, Connecticut with the Youth Football League, where a couple of coaches decided that third place just wasn't good enough, and whether it was as a motivational tool or as a wah, I didn't win, I want to go home, they took the kids' trophies and burned them. We're talking through some of these comments that came in offline, I should say online rather. So let me just get to another one here. By the way, 855 Hey Coach is the studio line. It's 855-439-2622. But this one came in from another one of these guys who quickly got off topic, but his first post is worth reading. Hey, Coach Tony, this is pathetic. Kill yourself? Really? I don't see anyone thanking Rod Fox for his 5 years of commitment and countless wins. Having played for Rod for over 4 years and now playing college athletics, I can honestly say he was one of the most dedicated and caring coaches I ever had. For you to bash him over something this trivial is sad, truly sad. Well, here's a couple. Well, you know what, Mike? I'm going to give you a shot at it. You hear that? What jumps off the page?
Again, I don't know these guys. They probably are terrific guys. I'll give them the benefit of the doubt. Mm-hmm. Probably have done a lot. And, a lot of the youth coaches, and I don't know if they get paid, are summer league coaches. They do it for lack of pay, their time, gas, a lot of things. And you got to give them credit. That being said, they probably have had a number of years doing the right thing every day, influencing a lot of kids. Unfortunately, in my opinion, and a lot of people's opinion, I think they made a mistake here. And unfortunately, it could be that one mistake that tarnishes you, whether you're a teacher or a coach or whatever it may be. It's that one incident. Okay? And again, you mentioned it earlier with Joe Paterno. Not to get into it, that's a whole different story.
Yep.
But here's a legendary guy that did nothing but the right thing, the right way, with legendary teams. You read about the Florida schools over the years, all different schools. You never heard about Penn State. Mm-hmm. But he's going to be remembered. And if he is involved in this, and I'm not going to go that way, but if there's any involvement where he should have stepped up a little bit, that's what people unfortunately going to remember a lot. I mean, I still respect him. We grew up watching Penn State.
Yeah.
These guys are probably terrific guys. Not to bash New Canaan. There are probably a lot of good people down there, obviously, I'm sure. But the bottom line is they made a mistake, and that's what they're going to be known for. Does it mean they're bad people? No. But they made a mistake that they should have taken a step back and say, how is this going to impact every one of these kids? You might have 25 kids or whatever it is on that team. Maybe 10 of them, or maybe old school, maybe some old school parents. Hey, they can handle it. They're going to take this. Okay, guess what? Not every kid.
There are
not
15 others that are going to do something else. And here's the thing: this guy, first of all, for the kid who wrote in, two things. It is not trivial. It's not trivial. As a whole, to any one kid, it may be trivial. To anyone or another kid, it may be life-changing. It really could. Now, the second thing, and I got to just address this because, again, Mike, you saw the last half of the show. I got to ask this, and if anybody wants to challenge it, just call in. I did indeed, when I started this comment, I did say if this is true, and I struggled for the words, and I said, kill yourself. And I made reference to playing one-man Clue. Do it with a candlestick in your study, and then the other guy should pick up whatever gun Rod Fox used and do the same thing. Mike, and answer this honestly, is there any question at all in your mind that was meant for jest? Is there a fiber anywhere in your being that even remotely makes you think that I truly want Rod Fox and his band of merry men to kill themselves?
No.
Thank you.
I knew I thought we were talking about, but.
All right. By the way, for that, by the way, my wife put this together. She had a nice Merry Christmas bag and all
Beautiful.
that stuff. We couldn't find the Happy Holiday one, so you got a T-shirt and a Hey Coach Tony mug in there. So you've been a terrific guest. I've been holding on to that bag for 3 weeks waiting for someone who deserves that.
Looks like it's a large. That should fit me.
It is actually an XL. Baseball guys are always diesel up top, so I got you an XL.
It's a nice way of saying I'm fat, Tony.
Well, if I'm fat, you're fat, right? Former baseball guys. But anyway, listen, these were clearly examples of kids with very limited experience sets. And in this case, I don't mind saying it, if you read the rest of their posts, limited sets of intelligence. I will say that. And they were just illustrating how inexperienced they are. However, there was a post from an adult who was just as far off the mark as possibly can be. Excuse me. He calls himself Connecticut Patrician, and it was on one of the local Connecticut blogs. And his quote was not much different than these. And I'll quote, "Brilliant. Let's teach our boys to be sappy. Let's teach our boys that coming in third is just as good as coming in first. Let's teach our boys to have no character. Let's teach our boys to be girls." After the Title IX show, I can't believe I'm reading that one. "Oh, I forget, we live in Connecticut. There are no real men to be found." Now, that is an adult that I may call stupid, Will I tell you to go kill yourself? No, I'll hold off on that one. But teach the boys to have no character? When I read that, I mean, are you kidding me? Accepting a third-place trophy for getting to the semifinals shows no character. But throwing them into a pile and burning them, that shows character? What do you think?
Well, I'll say this. I grew up youngest of 7, as I told you earlier, in a tough upbringing. 6 boys. Father was from Stanford, old school. And so, I coach my catchers, football guys. Hey, run through that fence. I get it. Run through a wall. I get it. Believe me, I get it. I'm also educated enough, whether it just be from working with kids, common sense, whatever you want to call it, that those kind of comments, my man here doesn't really understand the influence that you have. Again, it's like in a classroom. It might be the top 5 kids, top 10 kids. They can handle it. It's the lower level kids that might not have that trophy ever again, that opportunity, might not make their high school team. New Canaan's a powerhouse.
Yeah,
they may not make that team. They may never see the football field again. Okay? But for some of these guys, and I'm not, if they want to say in this day and age, hating on New Canaan. Again, I love the fact they're a powerhouse, and I love the fact I was impressed with that weight room. And the kids, I get it. And they bleed the red and black or whatever color's down there. But again, when you come on here, I'm going to assume that some of you, and writing these blogs, have never either don't have kids, worked with kids, coached kids.
Or just plain don't have a clue.
Plain don't have a clue, because the influence that you have, and they come on and say, it's not about being soft. I come from a tough background as far as my brothers and stuff, and talking about pushing it and being a college catcher. Okay, it's a different level, as you know. Okay, what you go through and coaching football, I'm all for that. But you also got to have common sense in how you do things and think about how your actions and words affect people.
And you keep saying, New Canaan is an amazing, tradition-rich program. And I'm so disappointed that I couldn't get in touch with Lou Marinelli. But you know what? I wouldn't be surprised if part of it was Lou said, there's no way I'm talking about this topic. Because my guess is Lou Marinelli is vomiting as we speak, knowing that this is happening in his town, where the culmination in football begins and ends with him. And he has done nothing short of just honor that town, that school, and that program. And for something like this to happen, even in perception under his watch, he's got to be going nuts, and it drives me crazy.
But Tony, one quick point. You know how many kids that went through that program that had, let's just say, 1 state finals, if you want to put it, that's the norm there, or that's the goal, get it? How many kids have won state championships here? You can bring them back, alumni, bring some back. You could go back and have them explain your careers going back to Pee Wee football and all that, and I guarantee 90 plus whatever % have never had this experience. There's other ways to win a state championship and be part of that tradition.
Not only would 90% of them not have had that experience, I'll bet every single one of them, I'd still make that bet, I might lose. But let's say every single one of them that is now an adult, maybe is coaching somewhere else, has children. Anyone who's gone through this program, I bet if you could bring them all back, they would be like, really unfortunate, horrible thing, should have never happened. And unfortunately, the last part of that is, and there are repercussions. Now, I don't want to pick on New Canaan as a town, because I will tell you, for the most part, the adults who got on the blogs were damning of people like this guy, Connecticut Patrician. Matter of fact, Larry, who started the ball rolling, said, well done, NCYF. You provide the correct example for the kids who play in our league, not the coaches who showed remarkably bad judgment in this situation. Guy named John jumped all over this guy, Connecticut Patrician. Get off your soapbox. Beer-fueled adult coaches bellowing obscenities at kids, throwing a tantrum trophy fire actually proves your point. Any 8th grader could tell you that's not anything that a real man should do in any situation. And the list goes on and on. This poor guy was so, and poor guy, I don't really care, but the fact is he was so in the minority. It was ridiculous. All right, we have to go to another break. This is just flying right by. When me and Coach Mike are going to flip a coin. We're either going to talk a little bit about Tebow, or we're going to talk about the dad who punched his 8th grade son in the face. And you know what? After all this, I think we're going to talk about Tebow. But before we go to break, I just want to remind you, by the way, for those of you who call in and participate and bring some value to the show, our good friends at Catamount Ski Resort in Hillsdale, New York, have given us 2 ski passes per week for the next 2-3 months. So if you got something to add and you're a skier and you want to enjoy some great skiing, a short drive from home, call into the show. It's 855-HEY-COACH. If you got something cool to add, you're going to win yourself 2 free lift tickets to Catamount Ski Resort in Hillsdale, New York. You're listening to Hey Coach Tony. Stick around. I'll be right back.
Coach Tony.
Hey, welcome back, everybody. You're listening to Hey Coach Tony, and we're having some fun here with Coach Mike today from Sheppaug Valley High School, and we're gonna have a little more fun. So if any of you, there's certain words I'm trying to say. For all the guys that were up on the YouTube page dropping those horrendously horrible and immature comments, you blew your chance. I called you out. You didn't call. You're a wuss. Get over it, and I'll get more things typed to me today. But I want to talk a little bit about what everybody in the world is talking about, and that is Tim Tebow. Mike and I were talking during the break. We tell kids when they're, at any age, it's not whether you win or lose, it's how you play the game. In the NFL and any other professional sport, anywhere you collect a paycheck, it's actually quite the opposite. It's not how you play the game. It's whether you win or lose. It seems that the detractors of Tim Tebow are flipping it one more time to it's not whether you win or lose, it's how you play the game. He's being viewed as a guy who doesn't play quarterback the right way. And so people are, well, I'll say it, people are hoping he fails. There are haters out there. He's such a polarizing person. I should say he's more of a polarizing topic. And there are a bunch of reasons why I think that that's the case. But in general terms, as a football fan, and I know you are as well as a coach, what do you think in general about Tebow as a quarterback?
Well, number one, he's been a winner. He's been a winner at every level. I saw the story on him last week. I think it was on ESPN.
Yeah, it was great.
Give ESPN a little plug there.
Yeah, home.
But no, he won at the high school level, the college level, and he's not your traditional quarterback. I mean, I don't even think he's like a Michael Vick in that, because Michael Vick has more speed and probably has a stronger arm, no doubt. But I think it's part of the reason why he's polarizing, if you want to call it that. Number one, he has won at every level, and people are saying, well, he's not going to win at this level. College is different.
This week's going to be different. And they've said that for every week. This is the big week, but everyone's been saying, well, this week is going to be different.
Well, you and I were talking in between the break, and you think it's going to continue. And
I didn't say I think it's going to continue.
Or it could.
I just said you couldn't have written a better script.
Because the matchup with the defense is
for them to go up against that New England defense, I don't think you could have written a better script as the season has progressed with him. But
I also think, too, I think the religion comes into play, too, with all that.
Thank you. I'm going to stop you because here's why Tim Tebow is such a polarizing factor, not just in the NFL, but in the general media, and it's why it has just absolutely become ubiquitous across all media. There's two reasons. One is, and I love this part, he is, in my opinion, and I have no reason to believe different, we may find out he and Sandusky would tag teaming kids in the showers, but from what we've seen so far, he is exactly what he appears to be. The golly shucks, gee willikers, it's not me, it's everybody else stuff, is not a smokescreen. He seems to be the most humble guy you'd ever want to see, and that does not translate at the NFL level.
No, but if you're a parent or a kid, and I take the religion away, religion and politics you always take away, and you're not going to win those conversations, right? But if you watch him as a football player and in the interviews, he does it the right way.
Absolutely.
And I go back to like a guy like Derek Jeter. When you talk to these young kids, watch Jeter. When he's lost, when he's won, there's not much of a difference. He says the right things. He's humble. And I'm not, he's got a long way to go. And right now he's winning. He's winning. Wait till if he does start losing, whether it's this year or next year, and everybody's going to be all over him, and Broncos want him out of there. But
how many quarterbacks who are 6-1, 7-1 as a starter are still being talked about as not the guy?
Right.
Nobody.
Right.
Nobody. Now, what you said, and I will not get into religion either, because anyone who's ever talked religion or politics with me either throws a drink in my face or turns and walks away. So that's okay. But I will say this. What is the most polarizing topic you can ever discuss ahead of politics? It is indeed religion. People have been killed and killed over their beliefs in religion. And I got to tell you, because he is such a strongly faithed individual, I think it plays into it. I give him credit again because while he will talk about it, he does not get on a soapbox. What I found, I'll say disgusting, I don't know if you heard this, his pastor last week actually said God shows favor on Tim Tebow because of his faith, and that's why the Broncos are doing well. And now I'm paraphrasing, but and I'm gonna let you say this, but I gotta think, hey, you know what? If you believe in a God or don't believe in a God, you have to believe this. You would think the guy has more important things to worry about than the point spread in the Broncos game. Let's focus on cancer. Let's focus on world hunger. Let's focus on world peace. Come on.
Whose favor is he showing when he throws a pick this weekend? I'm always amazed when these guys do, whether it's him and his wife. There's a lot of guys that always do their thanks after a touchdown or interview. but I never see him thanking anybody when they strike out or they drop.
Where were you when A.J. Burnett painted the outside corner with a slider? Where were you when they needed you?
But you got to respect how he does it right now. And again, you take religion out of play. I mean, because it's a funny topic because people.
That's not funny. It's just
right.
downright.
But the way he does it, he's winning, he's competing, and you hear the other guys in the interviews, veterans that have been in the league 10, 11 years playing him. Hey, he's rallying us, and we're going to ride it. And why not? You were 1-4, whatever it was. Why would you not rally it? And no matter how he's doing it,
Hey, listen, I was a superstitious as a ball player. You were too. I know it. We all were very superstitious. We put some sense of faith in something that we know deep down had nothing to do with it. And by the way, we're not going to talk about my religious positions. The reason I'm mentioning it is I have a ton of respect. While my religious beliefs are obviously very, very different than Tim Tebow, I think it's great that he is so committed and has such convictions to his faith. And if that's what gets you through the day, knock yourself out. As long as you're not pushing it on me, Tim Tebow, keep doing what you're doing. And if you want to, take Tebowing to the next level and say a rosary and take a 15-yarder every time you score a touchdown, go ahead. If I'm a Broncos fan or if I'm in the Broncos front office, all I care about is that this guy is winning. And is he going to win every game? No. But who has, besides Aaron Rodgers this year, who has won every game? And when they lose their one game, do the walls come crumbling down on top of these guys? Do people start calling for their heads when a loss happens? No. If Tim Tebow loses to the Patriots, everyone's going to go, told you. Took us 8-9 weeks, but told you. They can't wait for this guy to fail, and that's what really bothers me. Going back to it, you talked about Jeter. I always looked at Cal Ripken. Another guy. Cal Ripken wasn't as much as Tebow, a golly shucks, oh gee kind of guy, but he was. And he was very humble. And there's no better lesson to teach any kid than humility. Dignity when you win, dignity when you lose. There's a guy, Tim Tebow, who just respects the game. And I think part of it is he understands that the eyes are upon him. He understands that next year he may be out of a job no matter what he does this year.
Oh, he could be.
And he is just sitting there saying, you want to say I'm glorifying God? Whatever he's doing, he has an ear-to-ear smile when he plays this game and when he talks in the locker room. And I have never seen a more mild-mannered leader. Like I said, you go to a Jeter who's pretty outspoken when you compare him to Cal Ripken and Tim Tebow. But the fact that someone with that mentality, with that belief set, and that demeanor can lead 10, 11-year NFL veterans who are basically saying whatever he's doing, we love it, and we're going to follow him. I don't know if even John Elway saw that coming.
No. Well, he's changing his tune because early on he's probably not our guy. Yeah.
How can you not?
He just won 6-7 games.
Do you think it's too late? In other words, do you think it's kind of plastic that John Elway is changing his tune this late?
No, because I think Tebow's the kind of guy, if he were to win and make the playoffs and win a game or so, I think he's going to, they already love him out there. They're going to take him anyways, and no matter what Elway. Hey, if I was Elway early on, I'd be saying the same thing earlier also. And, you're going to root for him unless, he shoots himself in the leg like Plax. You're going to root for a guy like that.
You had to throw that one in there, right? Well, I mean, listen, the fact of the matter is this. Nothing but respect for Tim Tebow and the way he carries himself. And I think it is unfortunate that how would you like to be the quarterback that because they're going to draft and or deal for a quarterback any way they can. How would you like to be that guy? Because the front office, they're saying the right words. They do not support Tebow. They support him week to week. Long term, they do not.
Sure.
So the fans love him. The fans want him to stay. I want him to stay. I want to see the guy be amazingly successful. How would you like to be the next quarterback that comes in to battle him for that position, and the first time he wins, you come in under center?
I think he's level-headed and smart enough to know, hey, this could, I'm a Cowboy fan. We talked earlier. Look at Romo.
And I had you on the show anyway.
Yeah, I know. You didn't know that. But, they gave him all that money. He's been winning, but now it's 6-7 years down the road, and look what's going on, So at some point, hey, Tebow's going to lose a game. Whether it's just Sunday, he's going to lose a game again.
Unless God really stops concentrating on the rest of the world and really
agree.
Shows some favor
the style that he plays. What if a Belichick or someone comes in and completely shuts it down? Then you're going to say, hey, okay, he's a good backup. You can get him in here like a wildcat, whatever it may be, maybe a fullback. He's not the quarterback.
Hey,
it's still out. They got.
I watched the Steelers ride Cordell Stewart to the AFC Championship game numerous times. His style of play did not scale, and it may be the case. But if I'm a Broncos front office guy, my statement would be simple: we are going to ride Tim Tebow as long as he continues to win. That's great. If and when the league figures him out, we'll have another problem that we've got to solve. But to just so openly kind of bash the guy, and it's really what's been happening, is really unfair. So Tim Tebow, I know you're listening. I know Tim Tebow listens to the show. He got his Hey Coach Tony coffee mug. All kidding aside, you want to follow a role model, follow a Tim Tebow, man. Follow a Derek Jeter, follow a Cal Ripken. Coach Mike from Sheppaug Valley High School, I cannot thank you enough for sharing your time with me this morning. It was a pleasure. Folks, listen, every Saturday, 9 a.m., please join me for Hey Coach Tony. Hope you guys enjoy the rest of the weekend.